So let's take a look at what country you should be supporting at the 2022 FIFA World Cup based off of what county you support in Gaelic football. Supporting Spain at the 2022 FIFA World Cup means you are a Dublin fan, and here's why. Much like the Dubs, the Spanish have had a bit of a dominant spell in the past in Gaelic football, winning the Euros in 2008 and 2012. They won a World Cup in the middle in 2010 and were very much seen as an unstoppable force at the scene of international football. Just like the Dubs, it very much fell off a cliff very, very quickly. They quickly went from the very best to all of a sudden back to the chasing pack and very much chasing some sides above them. And much like the Spanish, the Dubs will be looking to get back on top in 2023. Spain will be looking to get back on top in 2022. So if you are a Dublin fan, you will be supporting Spain. Sube los dobalajes. Up the Dubs in Spanish. There you go. Can you think of a team in Gaelic football that dominates world football just like Brazil have done in the past, producing some of the greatest ever footballers, playing some of the best ever football, and winning games in spectacular fashion year on year? It's Kerry. And look, much like Brazil, Kerry obviously went through a bit of a dry spell between 2014 to 2022, and Brazil themselves going into this year's World Cup are on a 20-year dry spell since their last World Cup victory in 2002. However, Brazil are massive favourites for the World Cup this year, just like Kerry were massive favourites going into 2022. They're the best team on paper. Kerry are the best team on paper in Gaelic football. You put the two together and God knows what you get. Let's be perfectly honest, nobody in this country is going to be supporting England in the World Cup unless you have some massive bet put on. Is there a county that should be supporting England in the World Cup? I think it's Mayo, because Mayo and England have got some very similar comparisons. Both get hyped up by the media year on year, both produce a tremendous amount of young talent, both have so much hype around them, so much expectation, but ultimately fall at the final hurdle time and time again in the most heartbreaking fashion. Much like Germany in 2014, Donegal also had a special year in 2014, beating Dublin in an All-Ireland semi-final and eventually losing in the final, but they still got there. And much like Donegal, who absolutely trashed Dublin in the All-Ireland semi-finals in their own backyard, Germany did the exact same to Brazil, and both sides very similar. Both teams have a history in the sport of having very, very good sides, being thereabouts, producing some of the best players that we've seen in the sport, but ultimately they just don't seem to quite be able to get it right the last couple of years. Germany had a very dominant side, a golden generation type team, but could only win one major tournament with that team, similar to Donegal in 2012. Who is the Michael Murphy of this Germany side? I would go with Thomas Müller, a player that just doesn't seem to age. He's just always there. Michael Murphy's recently retired. Thomas Müller will retire after the World Cup for Germany. Much like the Belgians, Derry is a side that have produced a bit of a golden generation of players in the last couple of years, in the likes of Shane McGuigan, Conor Glass, Emmett Bradley, Chrissy McCaig, to name a few. And Belgium, look, they haven't lived up to the hype, let's be honest. They have not lived up to the hype just yet. A World Cup third place finish in 2018, but apart from that, they haven't really set the heights that a lot of people have felt for them. And they've been very much sort of hyped up in the same way that Derry have in Gaelic football in the last couple of years. The main difference is Derry did win an Ulster title this year, and obviously, you know, they're still a very young side, still a lot of players in their prime. Conor Glass is the Kevin De Bruyne of this Belgium side. Shane McGuigan is the Romelu Lukaku of this Belgium team. Oh, Jesus. Alright, I'm going to be honest, this is a bit of a difficult one, but I've gone for Tyrone because, you know, sometimes, much like the French, Tyrone seem to have sometimes a bit of an animosity amongst the panel, players not wanting to play. And with Tyrone, they can be absolutely brilliant one year, and then the next year they can be absolutely terrible. And that's sometimes what happens with France. They can go from winning a World Cup to not getting out of a group stage to being beaten in, you know, semi-finals, quarter-finals by teams like Switzerland. It can be very, very weird supporting the French, and I'm sure it can be very similar supporting Tyrone. When people think of Poland, they think of Robert Lewandowski, the star man for Poland the last couple of years. He's the main man, he's the man on everyone's lips when it comes to Polish football. And in a similar fashion, Monaghan have been very similar too, in that of Conor McManus. And when you look at Poland, you know, kind of a small team or small population, don't have much of a history in football, don't have much, you know, they're not really a team that many people expect to be a dominant force, and it's similar to Monaghan, but both sides have often punched above their weight. Argentina is a team with history, tradition, passion, sometimes controversy, but very often Argentina are a team producing some of the best football we've ever seen. They're a side that always have good players, but for whatever reason can never seem to get it right on the big stage. And I would compare that very much to Galway. Shane Walsh can do absolutely anything on the field with the ball at times. He can score from ridiculous angles, weaving in and out of spaces, beating players like he's doing it in his own backyard. Very similar to that of Lionel Messi. And Argentina are the favourites for this year's World Cup. Galway will be one of the favourites for the All-Ireland Championship next year. Both sides who have often had some very, very good players but haven't been able to get it right, and there's been issues behind the scenes. It looks like both sides are very much on track to putting that past behind them. Argentina, big favourites for the World Cup, and if you're a Galway supporter, you will be 100% behind them. The good old Portuguese, a team that have always produced some of the best players in the world, but ultimately really haven't done much when you think about it. They won a European Championship when they actually probably had their worst team we've probably ever seen in our lifetime, but yet they still magically managed to win the European Championship final, even without Ronaldo playing, and that probably says a lot about them. But if you are a Roscommon fan, you will be supporting Portugal. Roscommon, look, in a very similar fashion, every now and again tend to produce some very, very good players, produce shocks, go on runs, and do things every now and again that looks quite magical. But when it comes down to the big occasion, when it comes down to the big knockout game, unfortunately it doesn't work out for them and they end up losing. And much like Portugal, who don't really have a great record in the knockout stages of the World Cup, Roscommon do not have a great record in the knockout stages of the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. Enda Smith, he is the Bruno Fernandes of the Portugal side, and I fully expect Conor Cox to do an interview with Piers Morgan in the future about why the Roscommon fans betrayed him, because he's a Kerry man. I don't really know. I just have to pick someone. So, yeah. Obviously, this is just a bit of crack and a bit of banter, but if you enjoyed the video, smash the like button and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below. Who's your pick to win the World Cup, actually? My pick is Argentina, personally, but do let me know in the comments down below who you're picking to win the World Cup. And if you want to see a bit, a bit more of myself in your life, I am doing some content over on the World Cup on my second channel, so there will be some videos uploaded there from time to time on the World Cup, different thoughts, opinions, all the rest from myself. And if you want to see a bit more of myself, head on over there. I'll leave a link to it in the comments down below. So yeah, cheers to anyone who tuned in. Smash the like button, subscribe. See you later.